Voters defy threats from armed groups in Central African Republic. Rebels and the former president call for a boycott of the vote. Hi there, I'm Kim Vidal. This is Aljazeera live from Doha. Also coming up, rolling out the vaccine, countries across the EU launch a coordinated campaign to immunise against COVID-19. A different election story in Niger, where the first peaceful transfer of power since independence looks likely. And severe flooding forces evacuations in parts of the UK under the strictest coronavirus lockdown, and more rain could be on the way. In just under half an hour, polls are due to close in Central African Republic. Polling stations will remain open for an extra half an hour as voting started late in many parts of the country. The election is seen as a crucial test of democracy for a nation that has suffered years of violence and instability. The UN is reporting voter intimidation in the town of Bria, but observers say the poll is going smoothly elsewhere. The opposition and rebels accuse President Faustin Archange Touadéra of rigging the vote. But he is hit back, saying the election ensures the democratic rights of the people.
Every 5 years, Central Africans freely choose their leader. The institutions responsible for this mission are the ANE and the Constitutional Court, and the date set is the 27th. This is why all Central Africans come to vote, and I myself came to fulfill my civic duty.
Catherine Soy has been following developments from the capital, Bangui.
There has been problems in that town of Bria. They said that armed groups have been shooting in the air in different polling stations, had scared people away. But then also this statement says that UN peacekeepers have been reinforced. More peacekeepers have been deployed to that area, and for now it seems that the situation has been contained, but then people are still afraid. Like I said, they run away. And we're not just talking about Bria, we are also hearing of similar things in other towns in the provinces. In some towns, people are hiding out, afraid to come out to vote. In other places, polling stations have not opened yet. A lot of intimidation by armed groups, we're being told, in some places as well. But the UN says that these problems are localized to very few areas. Most of the country is safe for people to go out to vote. They say that most of the polling stations, more than 3,000 polling stations, have been opened and people are free to go and vote.
Thierry Vauquelin is from the French Institute of International Relations. His work focuses on Central and Southern Africa. He thinks President Touadéra's re-election won't resolve the security problems in CAR.
The fact that Bozizé and the armed groups are refusing those elections is, of course, a fact and a problem. But I think what will be a key development in the coming weeks will be the position of the democratic opposition movement. But anyway, the security situation in the country has been bad for the past 5 years, with the armed groups keeping control of 70% of the territory. And even if President Touadéra is re-elected this time, and as I said, it will be badly re-elected, this security situation is not going to change. They will still control 70% of the territory. So what we have basically now in CAR is a kind of Afghan-style election, like it happened in Afghanistan in 2019.
Voters are also going to the polls in Niger, a nation looking to deliver its first peaceful handover of power. President Mahamadou Issoufou was elected after a coup in 2011. He's stepping down after 2 terms. His preferred successor, Mohamed Bazoum, leads a 30-strong field of candidates. Niger is struggling with armed movements and widespread poverty.
Today is a special day for us and a special day for Niger, which will experience a democratic transition of power for the first time in its history. I hope it will be the first step towards more changes to consolidate our democratic process and our reputation as a democratic country in Africa and the world.
Ahmed Idris has more from the capital, Niamey.
According to the Election Commission, voting across the country has been going on smoothly, except in few areas where voting couldn't take place because of threat of violence. And he said there was even some form of surprise when people in certain areas threatened by violence by Boko Haram and armed groups from neighboring Mali and Burkina Faso got the sense that they are in fact voting today. So he said even in those areas election is taking place, but admitted that election is not taking place in certain areas because the threat is real. Meanwhile, in the capital here, voting has been going on smoothly. In the early hours of today, the voting, the turnout wasn't impressive actually, but as the day goes by, we are seeing numbers of people growing by the hour. The Election Commission is telling us that before the day runs out, they expect a larger turnout than it was in the morning and in the afternoon, actually.
One of the world's biggest coronavirus vaccination campaigns has begun in the EU. It aims to protect 450 million people across 27 countries. Leaders have hailed the program as a moment of unity and hope. Healthcare workers, the elderly and top politicians are among those getting the first jabs of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. Oman has also kicked off its inoculation campaign, the last Gulf country to do so. Oman's also reopening its borders on Tuesday after having closed them to prevent a mutated strain of coronavirus from getting in. Meanwhile, Israel is entering its third nationwide lockdown. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he hopes it'll be the last one and that the vaccination campaign will bring back a degree of normality within weeks. Irene Nasser is in West Jerusalem for us. Irene, so lockdown has just started. Tell us about it. How strict is it? How are people doing?
Well, there was a mad rush ahead of the lockdown for people preparing. In Tel Aviv, business even seemed as usual, just an hour or two ahead of the lockdown. The lockdown is supposed to last about 2 weeks, but health officials are saying that that's likely to be extended for about 3 to 4 weeks total. Numbers of infections here have really been on the rise and surging over the past few weeks. And just over the past few days, they've surpassed or have been around 4,000 cases recorded every day. Now, without this lockdown going into place, health officials are saying that those number of daily infections could rise to about 9,000. Restrictions are quite strict. People are not allowed to go beyond a kilometer away from their homes. Businesses will mostly be closed except for essential needs, including pharmacies and groceries, and then public transport and workplaces will be reduced to about 50% capacity. Now, the big debate here at the moment is education. In-person classes will continue to be held except for grades 5 to 10. Infection rates for grades around 11 and 12 have been quite high. And with schooling continuing, in-person classes continuing, the COVID commissioner is saying that that is basically exactly why this lockdown may be extended beyond the 2 weeks.
Irene, vaccinations started last week. How is the rollout going?
Well, the government has said that they have vaccinated about 280,000 Israelis over the past week. And Netanyahu last night said that they're hoping to reach, hoping to reach about 150 vaccinations per day. He said that he has spoken to Moderna and Pfizer and has asked them to really meet that demand. That would mean that about 4.5 million Israelis will be vaccinated with the first jab within a month. That's about half of the Israeli population. But there are still quite a few issues at play, one of which is that this vaccination campaign doesn't include Palestinians in the occupied West Bank and in Gaza. The Palestinian Authority there, with limited economic abilities, is not quite sure how they're going to get this vaccine. They have applied for a World Health Organization fund, but that would only basically provide 20% of the population, of the Palestinian population, with vaccinations. So human rights organizations are also saying that it is part of Israel's role to also facilitate the vaccination reaching for Palestinians, and with daily interactions between Palestinians and Israelis, it would seem that it would also be in their best interest to do so.
Irene Nasser there live from West Jerusalem. Parts of the UK are being warned to expect more flooding and strong winds. There have already been days of wet weather from the approaching storm Bella. Rivers have been rising particularly high in the county of Bedfordshire, where many homes have been evacuated. Rory Challens has this update from Clapham in Bedfordshire, where the river has burst its banks.
The river here is called the River Great Ouse, and as you can see, it's considerably greater than normal at the moment. It's burst its banks. It has flooded parts of the town of Bedford and surrounding villages. On Christmas Day, 1,300 residents were told that they should seriously think about moving out and finding somewhere else to stay. It's not only in Bedfordshire, the county of Northamptonshire has also experienced flooding, with another 1,000 people there being told that they should seek emergency accommodation on Christmas Day as well. That's the 25th of December. It's going down now. That is something to be thankful for. Also something to be thankful for is that the COVID restrictions, we are in the toughest tier of COVID restrictions in the UK here, tier 4, which basically means that the people here should be staying inside and not seeing friends and family. Well, what do you do if you're being told to get out of your home and you can't go and stay with friends and family? The police have said, temporarily at least for the moment, the flood warnings override the COVID restrictions, and people should go and stay with those that they need to get out of the flood danger. This is all part of Storm Bella, which has been lashing the UK over the last few hours and days. The highest winds recorded on the Isle of Wight, 170 kilometres an hour, travel disruption around the country, train lines being flooded and cross-channel routes being disrupted as well.
Still here on Aljazeera, the FBI and police in the US city of Nashville narrow their focus in the search for clues to the Christmas Day explosion. Plus,
we are living like animals, even animal living like better us.
We report on the plight of thousands of refugees and migrants stranded in freezing cold temperatures in Bosnia-Herzegovina without shelter.
Hello, we've got the temperatures on the slide across northern parts of China over the next couple of days, and that'll also be the case across the Korean Peninsula back into Japan, where we will see yet more snow in the forecast. Some snow starting to push across the mountains there, Mount Fuji turning white once again with more heavy snow coming through. Tokyo just getting up to around 9 Celsius as we go on through Monday. Take a look a little further west, Beijing at -1 degree on Monday, struggling to get to -5 by Tuesday as colder air starts to sink its way in then. We're going to see a line of snow coming in across northern parts of China, pushing across the Korean Peninsula into the north of Japan. Ahead of that, Tokyo still picking up a southerly wind for the time being, but getting up to around 14 degrees Celsius in the process. Make the most of it because it will turn a good deal cooler this week. Cold enough across northern parts of India, through northern areas of Pakistan at the moment. A little bit of snow sliding through here as well. More fog and smog problems across the northern plains. New Delhi at around 19 or 20 degrees. Further south, more heavy rain coming back into Sri Lanka as we go on through Tuesday, and that rain making its way across a good part of Tamil Nadu, eventually pushing into Kerala.
Stories of abuse in aged care homes in the West have shocked the world. But there's an alternative. 101 East meets those sending elderly loved ones to Thailand to live out their days. On Aljazeera.
A revolutionary in classical music, known for his extravagant productions and performances around the world. But his success hasn't come without controversy. Andre Roux discusses the impact his work has had on the classical music industry. On Al Jazeera.
You're watching Al Jazeera. A reminder of our top stories this hour. Voting is underway in Central African Republic despite the threat of violence. The opposition wanted it postponed and rebels have united to reject the polls. They're accusing President Faustin Archange Touadéra of rigging the election. Voting is also taking place in Niger, a nation looking to deliver its first peaceful handover of power. President Mahamadou Issoufou, who came to power in a coup before being elected in 2011, is stepping down after 2 terms. His preferred successor is Mohamed Bazoum. The European Union has begun one of the world's largest coronavirus vaccination campaigns, aiming to protect some 450 million people. Healthcare workers and care home residents in the 27-member bloc have been among the first to be inoculated. Federal investigators in the US have searched a home as they look for clues into a Christmas Day explosion in Nashville. 3 people were hurt and about 40 buildings were damaged. In the past half hour, police have held another media briefing, but as yet haven't provided much new information. Let's head over to John Hendren, who joins us from Nashville. John, what more can you tell us?
Well, Kim, that's right. We heard from a number of the officers who responded to the scene, and they talked about how they evacuated people from the area. They reported parking directly in front of that RV that ended up exploding, hearing the messages emanating from that RV telling people to evacuate and that there would be an explosion coming. So as that happened, they worked their way through the neighborhood to ensure that people weren't there. And they said, interestingly, that the windows of that RV were all blocked. They said they never saw the person inside of it. But we are getting a picture of the police theory in this case. They have a person of interest whose home they searched. That man is Anthony Quinn Warner, a 63-year-old man who lives about 15 kilometers away from downtown Nashville in a town called Antioch. And there are pictures of an RV, much like the one that exploded here, at that house where he lived. And intriguingly, there's also a report that he had transferred the deed of that house about a month ago to a woman in California who has ties to Tennessee at no cost whatsoever. So we know that he's a person of interest. Police have not said that he is the bomber. But police have also said that there is no ongoing threat, meaning they believe that the threat has been neutralized in this case. And they've said there have been no casualties, despite the fact that they found human remains at the scene. So you can speculate based on all that information that their theory seems to be that there was a lone bomber, that bomber died in the explosion. But they say they have 500 tips and leads that they've been given that they're all following up on. So we will continue to give you more information about that. But the officers who spoke about this Christmas Day bombing said it was a miracle that nobody was killed in it. As you mentioned, 3 people were injured, but nobody, including the 6 officers who responded to the scene, were seriously injured.
Okay, thank you. John Hendren live for us in Nashville. Turkey's defense minister says Libyan warlord Khalifa Haftar and his supporters will be viewed as legitimate targets if they target Turkish forces in the country. On Saturday, Hulusi Akar arrived in Tripoli, promising to increase cooperation with the internationally recognized government there. Warlord Haftar, who backs a rival eastern government, threatened to strike Turkish forces if after they pledged to extend their deployment for 18 months. Turkey's Minister of Defense gave a stark warning, saying he will respond with force to any attack from the Libyan warlord Khalifa Haftar.
The war criminal, the killer Haftar and his supporters must know that in the event of any attack on the Turkish soldiers, we will consider any element affiliated with this killer as a legitimate target for us wherever he is, and they will not find a place to run in the event that they can carry out such an attack. For this reason, they must be rational, especially since this period is witnessing a ceasefire agreement, within which political negotiations are held in order to find a solution to the crisis. Everyone here contributes to the process of finding a political solution, and that any movement outside this path will be wrong, and it is important to preserve the unity of Libya and that Libya be for the Libyans only.
A high-level Egyptian delegation is in Libya for peace talks. They will meet with officials from the UN-recognized government in Tripoli. It all comes a day after warlord Khalifa Haftar threatened to use force against Tripoli. Mahmoud Abdel Wahed has more now from the Libyan capital.
On top of the agenda, issues related to bringing ties back to normal, between the two regions, and also issues related to consulate issues, issues related to visa between to grant visa normally to citizens of both countries. But on the other hand, there is anger here. Many people in the government, in political parties, troops on the ground are very angry. They have been surprised by this visit, and they say that they cannot expect any peace from Egypt or from the Egyptian regime. In fact, since the Egyptian regime has been supporting all the military campaigns led by Haftar over the past 6 years. Definitely the Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar, during his visit yesterday in Tripoli, Hulusi Akar is trying to make sure that his forces in Libya are not being intimidated by Haftar's threats, and meanwhile Akar is threatening back that in case Haftar's forces attack their Turkish forces in Libya, they will be, and their supporters, not only Haftar's forces and their supporters would be legitimate target.
Globally, 23 girls under the age of 18 are married every minute, and the pandemic is causing a rise in child marriages. The UN forecasts that up to 13 million girls may be forced into marriage over the next 10 years. We spoke to Dula Akhtar, a teenage activist from Bangladesh. She and her colleagues have stopped more than 600 child marriages in the last 2 years.
Hi, I'm Dola and I'm 16 years old. When I was 10, basically I like to talk with my mom. So at that time I suddenly asked my mom that how was your childhood and what is the best memory have you spent in your childhood. So that time my mom was not able to say anything because my mom also get married at a very early age. So just because of from that I have got inspiration to work on these issues. So then I see that in my community there is a child forum who are working for this kind of problems. National Child Forum basically a child lead organization where children are working to stop child marriage and also want to create a child friendly environment where children can enjoy their rights. And more than 88,000 children are working for that. So today I am here to facilitate a training on ending child marriage, and I am also active into ending child marriage in my community. We are doing some kind of orientation with children's parents, teachers. So today me and my team is here to talk with a group of mothers about ending child marriage, because we think that family can play a vital role of ending child marriage. And beside this, we thought that government can play a vital role for solving this kind of problem. That's why we are making some kind of dialogue with the policymakers. We saw that sometimes parents are not able to come to us. So we visit door to door and tell them what is the bad effect of child marriage and how they can play a vital role to ending that. So whenever we get any kind of news of violence, of child marriage or something else, then we call, there is a national helpline, what is 1098, then we call there, and 1098 is connected us with near of any kind of police station. Then we went to the police and file a case, and then they help us and they give us a force to stop or to went to the venue or to solve the problem. When we got the news there is a family who is going to give child marriage, then we collect some kind of information that what is the age of that girl and why they are giving child marriage. So then we went to the family and asked them that why they are giving child marriage. They were saying like they don't want to invest on this girl and they don't want to be at the cost of education. So that's why they are giving child marriage. Then we tried to advocate with that family and motivated them, and then finally we stopped that child marriage. This girl is 14 years old and she is reading in class 5. During this pandemic, in last 2 months ago, in October, this girl was attempting to get married. And somehow, we child from got the news and successfully we have stopped this child marriage. We believe that if a girl get married at the early age, and maybe her childhood story or childhood memory will also destroyed. We have a plan or we have a mission like we want to create this platform internationally where every children can frequently work and they will know about their rights and they will work for others' rights, because we believe that children can understand other children's pain.
More than 1,000 refugees and migrants are stranded in the open and freezing weather in Bosnia-Herzegovina. The fire this week destroyed much of their camp near the Croatian border. Katia Lopez-Hodian reports.
These migrants have nowhere to go. They're stranded in a refugee camp in Bosnia-Herzegovina. Their goal is to reach Western Europe, But for now, their focus is surviving the winter storm. The Lipa camp near the Croatian border has no heat and no proper facilities. Lined outside in sub-zero temperatures, refugees wait for a donated meal and perhaps a sleeping bag from the Red Cross.
We are living like animals. Even animal living like better us. So please, I request UNO, IOM, all NGOs to help us, because if they cannot help us, we will die. So please help us.
A fire broke out on Wednesday, the same day the camp was meant to be shut down. A UN official says it was likely set by migrants frustrated with the scheduled closure and lack of alternatives. Now most of the infrastructure that housed more than 1,500 people is destroyed or damaged.
There is no anything and no blankets, no better place for sleeping. There is many problems, and I think we will be dying.
There are reports of frostbite and hypothermia. Proper shoes are a luxury many here can't afford. The EU has warned Bosnia that thousands of migrants face a freezing winter without shelter. But politics is getting in the way. Plans to relocate migrants have been met with protests and resistance from residents, and authorities have so far failed to find new accommodations for thousands of people from Asia, the Middle East, and North Africa. The situation has been described as a disaster upon a disaster, and the UN is concerned things could get worse. Katia Lopez-Odoyan, Al Jazeera.
At least 11 people have been killed after 3 avalanches in the mountains north of Iran's capital. Rescue workers are searching for 7 people reported missing since Friday. Another 7 climbers have been taken to hospital with frostbite. The pandemic has forced millions of people to work from home, and lockdowns have cost popular tourist destinations across the world billions of dollars. So the Canary Islands are joining a growing list of locations trying to tempt employees to work from their tropical spots instead of from their homes. Bernard Smith explains from Gran Canaria.
Is this your view when working from home during winter lockdowns? More likely, in the Northern Hemisphere at least, this is what you'll be enduring. It doesn't have to be like this. The Canary Islands has launched a campaign to attract 30,000 remote workers. It's not been a tough sell.
Most of my companies over in America, and some people have left the city to go live in the mountains or go, I think they've been supportive of people kind of looking after themselves and being in the right spot for them, as opposed to really caring where exactly they are.
Empty hotels, deserted pools, and very quiet beaches. European winter lockdowns means the Canary Islands is going to salvage very little from this season. One Spanish bank says this region will be the hardest hit by the economic fallout from the coronavirus in Spain. The Canaries wants remote workers to stay months at a time. Here, you can rent a bedroom and share space with other digital nomads, so you're never too lonely.
I actually feel like I've gotten more done here because I have this nice setup, and I can balance it quite well with a nice life.
Definitely not distracted. The word I would use would be inspired. Having the freedom to do things that I want to do according to the local restrictions.
Rooms here go for $1,000 a month. They call it co-living. It's fully booked until February.
8 months ago, some corporations that were working remotely, at least partially, were even hiding it because maybe they were afraid of investors, what people would think, because a lot of people thought that remote work is not work, and it's not only work, but it's actually sometimes often more productive.
Before the pandemic, the European Commission says that fewer than 5% of the EU's workforce usually worked from home. But as a result of the outbreak of COVID-19, that's shot up to 40%.
COVID has shown all the citizens of this planet that we can be very productive working from home. At the same time, we can balance our life, our family in a better way.
From the Caribbean to Europe to the Far East, a growing number of countries are offering visas and deals to tempt remote workers. The biggest risk is perhaps getting sand in your laptop. Bernard Smith, Al Jazeera, Gran Canaria.
And you can always find much more on our website. The address for that is aljazeera.com. bbc.com.